to do that just for Kelly in case somehow she doesn't get logged in. So again, what are we going to learn tonight? We're just going to talk real quick about why weight control is important, why other methods tend to fall short, how we're going to manage intake by counting cups rather than calories, and how we're going to apply this knowledge to our specific situation. So again, this is a very generalized and yet it's a very individualized approach. So you can use the same technique whether you weigh 400 pounds or you weigh 100 pounds. You can use it to lose weight. You can even use it to gain weight. If you do weigh 100 pounds, you probably should be looking at gaining weight, and you can use the formula essentially in reverse to put weight on if you need to do that. So why do we worry about weight? Again, it's fairly obvious, but worth reviewing. We want to have improved health. That's really, I think, number one goal. We want to take the pressure off our bones and joints. As an orthopedic surgeon, I deal with that. We know that every pound of weight increases the force across the knee by about 5 pounds because the knee, the ankle, the hip is such a small surface area that weight really overloads the joint and causes it to wear out prematurely. So we know that it's going to save your bones and joints. It hurts your cardiovascular health if you gain weight because it's greater work for the heart to pump that blood through that larger surface area or that larger volume of body mass that you have. So the heart can only pump so far, and it has to pump through a longer distance. It has to go through greater resistance. Let's see, the diabetes, there's an increased risk of diabetes if you if you're overweight or obese. You're going to have more difficulty regulating insulin because your fat makes it harder for you to regulate insulin. You're more at risk of developing sleep apnea. That can be a problem where if you develop sleep apnea, then you gain more weight because you get poor sleep, you're lethargic, and you can't burn off the calories. It also helps with improved self-esteem. You have improved self-image, improved energy if you can lose weight. So again, if you weigh 400 pounds and you have to walk a mile, and you can lose weight and get down to 200 pounds, it takes exactly half as much energy to walk that same mile. So you don't have increased energy, you have the same amount of energy, it just takes less energy to do the things you used to do. One of the greatest things, or the simplest ways to think of it is, if your goal is to weigh 40 pounds less, imagine right now taking a backpack, filling it with 40 pounds and strapping it on your back and just walking around and doing everyday things with that extra 40 pounds on yourself. And that's what it feels like to lose 40 pounds. So if you can drop that 40 pounds, think of how easy it's going to be, how much easier it's going to be to get around. So you can imagine those individuals with an extra 20, 40, 60, 100 pounds, whatever it may be, how much more energetic and lively they're going to feel as they lose that weight. Other things are financial savings. Again, if you weigh 300 pounds, that means you're eating on average about 15 cups of food a day. If you cut down to 200 pounds, that means you're going to eat on average about 10 cups of food per day. So that means you're going to save, essentially 50% of your food intake, or about 1/3, starting at 300, from what you were spending before. So if you spent, say, $300 a month on food, now you're going to only spend $200 a month on food because, again, you're just simply eating less. There are going to be other savings in your shoes. You're going to wear them out slower. You're going to save on clothing because you're wearing them out slower. You're going to even save gas because you're not going to weigh as much, and so it's going to be a lighter load for your car. Again, that's a small difference, but it's a difference nonetheless. So here's a body mass index table, and this just shows a way to measure an appropriate weight for your height. And so it's a very simple chart. It's not a perfect chart, but it's a simple way of looking at your height and weight and where you should be. So what you want to do is just find your height on the left-hand column. Once you find that, you go on the row where your height is, and you're going to follow that over. So for example, say you're 5'10" or 70 inches tall. There's the row showing the different weights. You find the weight, and say if you're 5'10", you weigh 209 pounds. You're right here, and then you just follow that BMI to the top, and you see that you're in the obese category. Your BMI is 30. So again, you just find your height, then you find your weight, and you go to the top, and that tells you what your BMI is. The problem with BMI is it's not very perfect. Someone like an NFL running back who's 5'10" and a very muscular 209 pounds is going to have a BMI of 30. Technically, they're going to be considered obese, and yet they may be an incredible athlete. A Vikings fan who never does more than sit on the couch and eat potato chips, who is also 5'10" and weighs 209 pounds, has a BMI of 30, that person probably is obese. So again, it does not differentiate between fat or muscle or true health. It really is simply looking at height and weight, and that's it. And so you have to take your body mass index with a little grain of salt. Personally, I'm right here, 72 inches. I weigh about 200 pounds, so my BMI is about 27. You know, and it would, for me to get down to 180, 177 to get down to a normal BMI, I'd probably look fairly emaciated at that level. So again, you have to figure out what BMI seems appropriate for you. This is a good general measure though. So why do other diets tend to fail? They tend to fail because they lack one of three critical elements. They either need to be simple and reproducible, they need to be effective, and they need to be inexpensive. And so again, ideally, you need to have all three of those things. And so things like Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, personal trainers, Seattle Sutton, meal programs, they're very simple and they can be very effective, but they tend to be very expensive, and they tend not to really set you up for long-term success because you become a bit reliant on those programs. Just simply being told to eat less is very inexpensive, but it's not very reproducible. You know, all of us know that, yeah, if we probably eat less, we're going to lose weight. But the problem is we don't know what less is until you have ProportionFit, and then we'll tell you exactly what that is. Things like supplements, HCG, diet pills, they can potentially be effective, but they're expensive and they're probably not that healthy. So the other problem is most diets tend to focus on the short term and not the long term, whereas I think with ProportionFit, you're looking at both the short term and the long term. You're trying to set yourself up for success to lose the weight you want to lose, and then you're trying to help yourself stay at that weight once you get there. So why is the ProportionFit diet unique? It's unique because it is simple and reproducible. It's self-directed. You rely on yourself and not others. You basically take the knowledge that we're going through tonight, you read the book, you understand it, and then you just go from there. So again, it's very simple, very reproducible. It's effective. We know that calories and weight are a fairly linear equation, so if we can cut the calories, we're going to cut the weight. Similarly, if we cut the cups, we're going to cut the weight. And we know it's effective because we've had a lot of experience now. Basically, for about 3 years, we've been able to track some results and see how patients lose weight, or how people lose weight when they follow this diet program. And it's inexpensive. You know, this is as inexpensive as it gets. Again, you can just sit through a talk like this, understand the concept. You can watch the videos online. You can read the book. The most you're going to be out is maybe $15 to buy the book, and then that's it. There's no ongoing expense. And in fact, you're going to save money immediately. The first month, if you're on the diet, you're going to save at least $15 in food costs just by trying to lose weight. So when I wrote the book, I did a trial. We tried to get about 20 participants. We got 18, and we asked them each, okay, try to lose at least 20 pounds over the course of the next, or have your goal of losing at least 20 pounds at some point. Let's measure for 2 months and see how people do. And so we had a group of 18. The average weight loss over the 2 months was 13.5 pounds. And then when I asked them at the end, I said, did you follow this closely, or did you follow it somewhat loosely, not real closely? We found that the ones that followed it closely lost over 15 pounds on average. The ones that followed it more loosely only lost about 10 pounds. And so we know that it is effective if you actually follow it closely. Even if you follow it loosely, you're still going to succeed, but not as well as the people who follow it more closely. We did a second trial and found very similar results. We measured that for 7 weeks, found about a 12-pound weight loss. We have had people with over 75 pounds of weight loss. We've had people with over 100 pounds of weight loss thus far. And so really, it's good for anyone that wants to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 40 pounds, 60 pounds, over 100 pounds. It's really good for just about anyone. So how are we going to count cups versus count calories? It's really pretty simple math. If you look at average calorie expenditure, most people burn on average about 13 to 15 calories per pound per day. If you're fairly sedentary, it's going to be a little lower, maybe only 8 to 12 calories per pound per day. If you're fairly active, you might be higher, up 16 to 20 calories per pound per day. But if we take an average, let's say that you burn about 14 calories per pound per day. So if you simply take your weight, multiply by 14, that's approximately how many calories you're going to need per day. So if your intake outpaces your expenditure, obviously you're going to gain weight. If your intake is less than your expenditure, you're going to lose weight. And then we also know that about 3,500 calories are responsible for a pound of fat. And so if you take in an extra 3,500 calories, you're probably going to weigh about a pound more. If you burn off 3,500 calories, you're going to lose about a pound. The problem with all this math is that counting calories ultimately is an inexact science. To really measure exactly how many calories are in an apple or in a sandwich or in a piece of pizza, cheesecake, French fries, it's very difficult and ultimately becomes a bit of guesswork. And so instead of trying to guess at calories, we're just going to use cups, because cups are a good estimate of calories, and that's really all we need, because ultimately we're fooling ourselves if we think that counting calories is really exact. So if we just count cups, we're taking out the middleman. So the other thing to know, or just keep in mind, is that there's three primary components of food. There's fat, there's protein, there's carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables tend to be high in carbohydrates. Meats and nuts tend to be high in protein and some fat. Seafood, fish, chicken, tofu tend to be nice pure proteins that are higher in protein and not much else. There's some carbohydrate in there, maybe a little bit of fat. Pastas and grains tend to be primarily carbohydrates, but they can be protein as well, especially if they're enriched. And then you also have to keep in mind those calorie-laden beverages. So whether it's an alcoholic beverage, whether it's milk, whether it's iced tea, whether it's sugar-containing pop, those things have calories, and those have to be kept in mind and counted. So let's look at an example here. If you look at vegetables, if you take vegetables and you measure per cup, how many calories are found in a cup of asparagus? It's only about 30 calories. If you look at a cup of olives, a lot of calories, 210. If you look at a cup of spinach, it's only 10 calories per cup. And so it's important to differentiate right here. The difference between the ProportionFit concept and things like Weight Watchers and a lot of other diet programs is they will give you what they consider free foods, things like spinach, things like lettuce that really don't have many calories in them. But the problem is, by loading yourself up with these low-calorie foods, you're going to tend to dilate your stomach a little bit. Your stomach's going to be used to a larger volume of food, which means that your stomach is only going to be satiated or satisfied when you fill it with a large volume of food. And so the problem is, it's great if you can eat those low-calorie foods, but sometimes your stomach is going to want to be filled, and you're not going to have spinach, you're not going to have lettuce available. You're going to have a hamburger or two, and you're going to fill your stomach with those items, and that's where you tend to not have that sort of stomach shrinkage that you need so that you get satiated early. Because ultimately, if you look at people who go through gastric bypass, they're shrinking their stomachs down, their GI tract just can't accept as much food, and so we're trying to just, through a little bit of calorie restriction, a little bit of cup or food volume restriction, we're trying to shrink our stomach down to a more appropriate size. Oh, the other thing worth noticing here is potatoes. So potatoes, fairly high in calories, 240 calories per cup. But look what happens when you throw them in a deep fryer. You turn those potatoes into French fries. They're twice as many calories. So once they've soaked up that oil from the deep fryer, they've now just doubled in calorie count, and yet the volume of the food is still the same. And so keep in mind the preparation does affect the calorie count. The bottom line, however, is this. It doesn't mean you can't have some French fries. Go ahead and eat some French fries. You just shouldn't have them all the time. You make wise choices. You have a good, balanced, healthy diet that involves a mixture of fruits and vegetables, meat and potatoes, and you're going to be just fine. So if we look at another example here, going back again to that, you see that the average calorie count for vegetables is only about 90 calories. So if you average all those out, it's about 90 calories per cup. Whereas with the meat, potato, poultry, protein foods, they average on average 310 calories per cup. And so things like a beef pot roast, 410 calories. Things like crab meat is very lean. It's only 120 calories per cup. And if you look at things like sausage, 440 calories per cup. So again, there's a wide variability there. It doesn't mean that anything on this list is off limits. You can eat any of these things. It's just that you should be smart, and all of your protein shouldn't come from sausage. It should be a combination of maybe some sausage, but add in some poultry, add in some seafood, some crab that's lower in calorie, and you're going to be in great shape. So as I'm trying to say, what is important is we're going to average all these out. You're going to consider yourself having a good balanced diet of fruits, vegetables, meats, grains, and even some desserts. That's fine. And we know that if you average all those things out, you get about 280 calories per cup. And we know that, again, if you take that 14 divides into 280 by 20, and so we know that for every 20 pounds of body weight that you have to take in about 1 cup. So again, now, if we sort of extrapolate that calorie count out, I as an individual weigh about 200 pounds, and so if I take my weight, divide by 20, I know that I have to take in about 10 cups per day. So again, there's 1 cup required for every 20 pounds of body weight. So whether you know it or not, that's about how much food you're taking in on an average day. So whether it's intentional or not, if I keep my weight at about 200 pounds, on average, I'm eating about 10 cups per day. And that's just simple math. That's not That's just pure fact, and so there's not really any way to argue around that. So look at this in a simple table. Again, 200 pounds, 280 calories, 10 cups. So if you just take your weight, find your weight here in the left-hand column, and go over to the right-hand side, you're going to see what your cup volume is per day. And again, it's very simple math. It's just your weight divided by 20. So finally, what does it all mean? So again, if a simple cup, an 8-ounce cup, and again, that's important to know, a cup, when I refer to a cup, we're talking about an 8-ounce cup, is a daily portion. So if you take in 1 extra cup per day than you should, so again, if I, as a 200-pound individual, instead of eating 10 cups per day, I start eating 11 cups per day, I will slowly become 20 pounds heavier because I'm just putting that many extra calories in my body. Eventually, it's going to gain until I'm 20 pounds heavier. And then what happens is if I take in another cup beyond that, then eventually I'm going to be not 220 pounds, but I'm going to be 240 pounds. If I start taking in 12 cups, 13 cups, 14 cups. And so the bottom line is for every cup you take in, you're going to be about 20 pounds heavier. And the problem is that our bodies want enough calories to satiate whatever you weigh right now. So again, if I weigh 200 pounds, my body's not going to be satisfied until I take in at least 10 cups. So it sort of knows I need 10 cups to stay alive at this weight, and so my body, through its regulatory mechanisms, is always craving at least 10 cups of food. But the problem is to always take in at least 10 cups, that means that I'm often going to overshoot a little bit. Every time I overshoot, that means my weight's going to go up. If my weight goes up, then my body's going to want to satisfy that higher weight, which means that I'm going to tend to overeat a little bit, and then my weight keeps on creeping up and up. And that's how most of us tend to put on weight. It just happens very slowly, very insidiously. We're just listening to our body, and slowly our weight creeps up. But the good news about this, we can use this knowledge to shed pounds as well. We can sort of use this knowledge in reverse to lose weight over time. And so how do we measure cups? Well, again, it looks very daunting. When you look at a little example like we have here in this picture, it looks interesting. It looks like maybe we can figure something out, but it's really very easy. So if you take a measuring cup, and this is one of those things where if you've never done this before, it's a good time to play with your food. And so take a cup, fill it with rice, and you can see if you dump that on the little cutting board, that little pile of rice is equal to 1 cup. If I take another cup of rice and I put it over here and I flatten it out and I try to make it look like a piece of pizza, I realize, okay, that cup of rice is about the same size as a piece of pizza. So this piece of pizza is equal to about a cup. And if I take an apple and I put it in a measuring cup and I realize, okay, it fills that measuring cup up about just right, that apple is equal to a cup. And if I take a sandwich and I lay it down next to a 12-ounce can, so again, a cup is 8 ounces, so if that sandwich is equal to about the size of a 12-ounce can, I know that that sandwich is equal to about 1.5 cups. And so again, if I were to eat all of this in one setting, so 1.5 here, 2.5, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 cups of food that I'm taking in, that'd be a pretty big meal. Diet Mountain Dew, maybe not the healthiest beverage, but there are no calories in it, so that's something you can have for free. So again, you don't count the volume of beverage here because it's a calorie-free beverage. Anything calorie-free as a beverage is free. So if it's water, if it's coffee, if it's tea, a diet beverage, those things are all free. Anything with calories, alcohol, milk, juice, pop, needs to be counted as one of your cups. And again, that's all in the book. So if you did one of these programs before, or if you need one of these things, let me know. This is just the meal measure device to help you measure your food. And what you can do is put it on your plate, and you put the food in the little holes, and then magically you lift it off, and the container is completely clean like this, and your food sticks in the perfect little pile. So imagine again, if this little measuring device was down, you put the food in there, this meal is about 1, 2, 3, 4 cups approximately right here on this plate. The problem with Meal Measure, when they developed this, it's a neat little tool, but they didn't really have any instruction to go with it. So that's why I wrote the book to modify it slightly just to go along with that device. So how are you going to apply this knowledge? So it's very simple. Again, if you take an additional cup daily, it's going to make you 20 pounds heavier over time. So we're going to use that formula in reverse. So the first thing you do is you determine the cups necessary for you at your current weight. So again, for my example is 200 pounds. If I take in or I divide by 20, that gives me 10 cups of food per day. So I know that my average right now to maintain myself at 200 pounds is 10 cups per day. So if I want to lose weight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat a number of cups less than that number to lose weight. For every cup I take away, I'm going to lose about a half pound. So if I take away 1 cup, I'll lose a half pound per week. If I take away 2 cups, I'll lose 1 pound per week. If I take away 4 cups, I'll lose 2 pounds per week. And so if I normally take 10 cups, but now I start eating only 6 cups, which again is a 4-cup deficit, that means I'm going to lose 2 pounds per week. And again, it's a surprisingly linear equation if you follow this exactly. The problem is you don't want to ever eat less than 4 cups per day. So for example, say you only weigh 150 pounds, that means that you at baseline are only taking in about 7.5 cups per day. So the most you should ever subtract from that is probably 3.5 cups to get you down to 4 cups per day. You don't want to eat less than ideally about 1,000 calories per day, or your body switches into a bit of a starvation mode, and it does throw the formula off, and it's probably not that healthy. So always try to eat at least 4 cups per day, which will give you at least about 1,000 calories per day to maintain yourself. So one of the main tenets of this concept, again, is about shrinking your stomach, and it is okay to be hungry. You need to understand hunger. Hunger is not an enemy. It's actually an okay thing. Hunger is going to be expected when you're trying to lose weight. It's a natural response to a calorie deficit. It just means that you're taking in fewer calories than whatever your body wants to maintain the weight it's at, and it essentially signals a calorie deficit. So you really shouldn't trust any diet that guarantees you're not going to be hungry, or that you're just never going to feel hungry, because it's really unrealistic, it's probably unnatural, and it's really unsustainable. It's not something that's going to work for you for the long term. And really, ultimately, knowledge is power. Understand that hunger is probably equal to weight loss. If you're trying to lose weight and you're hungry, you're probably succeeding. You're probably doing the right thing, because again, you're restricting your calorie intake somewhat. So another way to look at this is sort of graphically. If your maintenance cups are right here and it's 10 cups and you're taking in 12 cups per day, you're not going to feel hungry. So all day long, you're going to be fat and happy. You're going to be eating more than you need for maintenance, which means you're never going to experience hunger. However, if you have a perfect balance, I require 10 cups per day and I eat exactly 10 cups per day, I'm going to feel a little hungry during the day. There are different times when my calorie or my blood sugar is a little bit low, my body's craving something, I'm going to feel hunger. So even when you're perfectly balanced, you're going to feel some hunger at different points during the day. When you're restricting, so again, your maintenance is 10 cups, but now you're only taking in about 8 cups per day, you're going to feel more hungry during the day. Again, it's not rocket science. So again, if you feel more hungry than usual during the day because you're restricting your calories, good for you. You don't have to respond to hunger if you're trying to lose weight. Hi, Vicki. So again, how do you apply this knowledge? Here's a very busy graph, but it's a good example to imagine sort of a theoretical person by the name of Pat Johnson. So Pat starts out weighing 300 pounds, and Pat's goal is to take a 54 plus BMI and get down to normal. So Pat is 5 feet tall at 60 inches, and Pat wants to get down to a goal weight of 125, which would make the BMI 24. So Pat at 300 pounds is taking in about 15 cups per day. To get down to 125 pounds, that means that Pat would only be eating 6.25 cups per day. So that's a huge difference, 9 cups difference to go from 300 down to 125 pounds. So what Pat does, he or she says, you know what, I'm just going to pretend from day one, I'm going to pretend as if I'm a 125-pound individual, and I'm going to eat like a 125-pound individual. So Pat, if you look at it over here on the right side, is cups. Pat says, okay, I'm going to eat only 6.25 cups per day. So right away, Pat has this huge deficit from how many cups she should be taking in to be 300 pounds versus how many cups she's actually eating. It's a 9-cup deficit. So what happens is, for every 13-cup deficit you have, you're going to lose about a pound. And so Pat, every day and a half, is going to lose a pound. So Pat's going to have this very rapid weight loss initially, this huge weight loss occurring. But then what happens is, as Pat loses weight, that means that Pat requires fewer cups to maintain that weight, which means there's a lesser differential as time goes on. So slowly the differential starts to go away, and that line starts to even out a little bit more, starts to flatten out a little bit. And then once Pat gets down to this range, then Pat says, okay, I only have a 4-cup deficit between my maintenance cups I'm taking in and my actual number of cups consumed, and so I've got a 4-cup deficit. So now as I continue to lose weight, I'm going to start adjusting my intake down. So Pat says, okay, my maintenance cup, I'm going to calculate that, and I'm always going to subtract 4. And as I continue to lose weight, I'm going to always subtract 4, so that as I lose weight, I'm going to maintain this 4-cup deficit, which puts you on a nice linear path. And that's going to be that 2 pounds per week weight loss occurring right through here. And then Pat breaks the cardinal rule and goes below 4 cups, but we'll ignore that for this example. But Pat keeps on losing weight, maintaining a 4-cup differential until what happens is Pat arrives at her goal weight, down to 125 pounds right here. So Pat now has been accustomed to eating only 3 cups per day. All of a sudden now, once she's at her goal weight, can go back up to the maintenance of 6.25. So you can imagine the stomach has been shrunk down to being used to such a small volume of food. 6 1/4 cups is going to feel extremely filling at this point, but that's what Pat needs to now maintain 125 pounds. So again, this is a bit of a drastic example, but you can see how if you look at the weeks here on the bottom, to lose that amount of weight, it's going to take over a year, even in a fairly aggressive manner. So again, weight loss is not something to be done overnight or immediately. It's something to be done very slowly, because just like when we put on weight, it happens very slowly. If we can lose it slowly, it's going to be more effective. So hopefully, again, we've learned that why weight control is important. It's for medical reasons, for health reasons, financial reasons, self-esteem reasons. Other methods tend to fall short because, again, they lack the simplicity or the effectiveness, or they're just too darn expensive. And we can manage our intake by counting cups rather than calories, because we know that 1 cup of food equals, on average, 280 calories if you average everything out. Again, whether you have fruits and vegetables or meat and potatoes or desserts, if you average everything out, it's 280 calories per cup. So again, don't even worry about the calorie counts, just worry about the cups. And so we're going to apply this knowledge to any given situation. So whatever you weigh, divide that number by 20. That's how many cups you need to maintain the weight you're at right now. If you want to lose weight, you're going to restrict 1 cup per day to lose 1/2 pound per week, and over time, that's going to show up. So if you restrict 2 cups, it's going to be 1 pound per week. 4 cups, it's going to be 2 pounds per week. And remember, hunger is expected, especially early on, and it's okay. It's actually a welcome thing, because it means that you are restricting yourself appropriately. So let's see here. If you bear with me here just a second, I'm going to see if I can log on. Does anyone have any questions for me real quick? I'm going to try to get on SurveyMonkey to show you these surveys. Oh, here, Vicki, this is just for you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Please type in the chat box if you have anything. Oops. Okay, everyone still see me okay? Vicky said hers was paused. Anyone else having technical difficulties? Sorry, Melissa's asking, do you recommend keeping a food journal to track cups? Not a bad idea, just because then you can sort of keep track of what you've been eating, and so if you have any problems, you can always refer back to that. One of the best things to keep in mind is that, again, it's very critical to always have a balanced diet. When I say a balanced diet, probably the easiest thing to think of is just that so 1 out of every 3 cups you eat should be essentially fruits and vegetables. So it should be things that have very low calorie counts for the most part, high in fiber. And so again, if you have a balanced diet and you remember that about 1/3 of the cups you take in are going to be low calorie, high fiber, fruits and vegetables, that's really important. And again, a food journal is good. I've tried to devise different ways to keep track of cups. You can use a little tracking, there's not a good tracking app, but you can use something online. You can use little check marks on a notebook. You can keep a little counter on your phone, but ultimately it's pretty easy. I mean, it's really to me, it's not hard at the end of the day. If I'm feeling hungry and I'm driving by McDonald's and I want to get an ice cream cone, I can pretty easily think in my head, okay, I had this, this, this. I can count in my head usually at the end of the day how many cups of food I've had, and I can say to myself, okay, yeah, sure, I'm hungry. I haven't had that much to eat. I can go ahead and have that ice cream cone, or I add up the cups in my head and I say, nope, I really have had enough today. I really shouldn't eat that. Even though I'm hungry, I really don't need that extra food. And so usually, especially when you're losing weight because you're only eating maybe 4, 5, 6, 8 cups per day, it's not hard to keep track of those in your head. So anyways, real quick, here's hopefully that answers your question, Melissa. But again, that's a personal thing. If you want to keep a food journal, that's great. Here's just a survey some of you may have done, but looking at why would you do something like follow the ProportionFit diet? You're trying to improve your health, you improve your appearance, improve your activity tolerance, trying to be able to exercise more, and try to sleep better too. That's a real important thing. Trying to get good rest along with good activity. Andy's giving me a hard time about Arby's. I like Arby's. I had it today, in fact, Arby's Day. But anyways, what techniques have you tried in the past to lose weight? High protein, low carb diets like the Zone, paleo diets, meal systems. Again, they can be very effective, but they get pretty expensive after a while. Taking out breads, years ago that that was a huge thing. Just to okay, don't eat any bread, don't eat any bread. Ultimately, all people are doing is they're just taking out the volume, and so again, it's basically just proportion fit. You're just cutting out more volume. So every roll you don't eat, that's another cup of food you're not taking in, which again, you're just restricting volume by cutting out all the grains. Things like cleanses, vegetarian diets, exercise programs. Diet trumps exercise when it's weight loss. And so if you're trying to lose weight, it's all about diet. So again, you can exercise like a mad person, but if you take in too many calories, you're still going to lose weight, or you're still going to gain weight, or you're not going to lose weight. Whereas if you have an appropriate diet, if you don't exercise, you're still going to lose weight. So even if you're not exercising, if you're taking in a good controlled number of cups, you can still lose weight. So diet always trumps exercise when it comes to weight loss. Think of it this way, that diet is more about weight loss and exercise is more about fitness. And so again, you can be maybe a little bit overweight, but still be somewhat fit if you're exercising. But if you want to be truly fit and healthy, it's probably best to get to an appropriate weight and also exercise at the same time. So exercise programs alone, the bottom line is it's very difficult to really lose weight unless you exercise and very intentionally change absolutely nothing about what you take in. So again, if you purely exercise and you work out a lot, and then you absolutely do not give yourself any extra food, you will lose weight. But again, you have to be very deliberate about that. So what are the biggest challenges about weight loss? Usually it's about sticking with it. It's cost and expense, difficult to follow. They're good for the short term, but not good for the long term. There's a very few that are good for long term, but not good for the short term. That's what this question was. It's often the self-motivation to stick with it. That's the biggest one, almost 85% of people. Attempts in the past just are ineffective. Different diets just don't really work. That you're hungry, and so you give into the hunger and you overeat. There are temptations all around me. I'm a sucker for donuts in the break room, things like that. I love eating them, and so you have to be very deliberate about passing those things up. And then about lack of support from others. That's the nice thing about this little buddy system we're trying to do today. So not only is your buddy that you're trying to lose weight with going to give you a hard time if you don't stick to it because there's money on the line, but you have accountability, not just yourself but someone else. And so hopefully we won't see any lack of support from others around you. So again, hopefully you'll all succeed. And again, you can support each other too. So not only is it about you and your buddy, but it's about a little friendly competition and motivating each other to stick with it. Most of the people, by and large, tend to be females doing these diet programs. And I think that's, for whatever reason, fairly true across the board. So if you look at, again, we'll just look at one quick example here. So if we look at, let's see, end of week 6. So we have just 15 people filling out the surveys here, and please do fill these out. If you haven't done them before, please fill out these surveys. They can be found if you go to ProportionFit.com on the website there. So right now I have this data filtered, so it's people that have either followed the diet exactly as described or fairly closely. So out of the 15, 13 people describe themselves as following it closely, and they did read the entire book. So after 6 weeks, have they been able to follow the recommended cup allowances? Most, 30% of people say, yeah, pretty easily. Over 50%, yeah, say somewhat easily. and then about 15% said, with a little bit of difficulty, but I was able to do it. Nobody said they just couldn't do it. Nobody said they had great difficulty doing it. So when asked, how hungry did you feel during week 6? Most people feel a little hungry, and that's appropriate. Again, if you're losing weight, you're going to feel a little hungry. Not hungry, that probably means you're not quite restricted enough. If you're really trying to lose a significant amount of weight, you should feel at least a little bit hungry. Somewhat hungry, again, that's a judgment call, but what's the difference between a little hungry and somewhat hungry? So again, you probably should fall in this range, usually a little hungry, and that's where the majority are. So how energetic do you feel during week 6 of the ProportionFit diet? So here you are, you've lost weight. Do you feel more energetic? Do you feel less energetic? Most people felt more energetic. So again, it takes, say these people have lost 10 pounds in the course of 6 weeks. It's like taking a 10-pound weight off your back, and now you feel a little lighter on your feet. You feel more energetic because you're able to do more. The other little less than half of people feel about baseline, not a whole lot of change. So when asked, how have you used a ProportionFit diet to lose weight? Some people use about 4-cup deficit. Some people use a 6-cup deficit. And some people ate to the weight they want to be approach. So this last thing, I eat to the weight I want to be. So remember that example of Pat Johnson? Pat said, okay, I'm 300 pounds, but I'm going to pretend I'm only 125 pounds. I'm going to eat only 6.25 cups. That's the eat to the weight I want to be approach. And so you can see over half of people took that approach to lose weight in that first 6 weeks. And so what happens after 6 weeks? Well, you have some people that lose only 4 pounds. You have some people that lose only 7 pounds. You have some people that lose as many as 17 pounds, 16 pounds, 14 pounds. You can see that the average sort of falls right in here. On average, somewhere between about 10 and 12 pounds after 6 weeks. So most people should lose probably at least 10 pounds in 6 weeks. But again, it depends on your starting weight. If you're only 140 pounds to start with, yeah, you probably should only lose about 4 pounds in 2 months because, again, you're pretty light to start with. But again, remember for this challenge, because it's about percentages, that's okay. So what's been the biggest challenge during week 6 of ProportionFit diet? It's the self-motivation to stick with it. Half the people say that. And it's the temptations all around me. Again, it does take a certain amount of diligence and dedication and commitment to really stick with this. And again, avoid the temptations, whether it's the fridge or the pantry that's stocked at home, whether it's the break room with the donuts or the cookies or whatever food is there. If you're like me, if you have a party and you have a bunch of food left over, you bring it to work and you have everyone else eat it to get rid of it. Don't fall for that trap. So again, try to resist. So what's your favorite part of the diet, ProportionFit diet, as if anyone ever has a favorite part of doing a diet. But let's say it seems easy to follow. You can see the results, it makes sense, and you can use it for a lifetime. And that's really my goal with this whole thing, is again, to make it very simple, something that, again, hopefully you can succeed here in the next 2 months, but then you can take that and go beyond the 2 months if you need to lose more weight or just to maintain a healthy weight once you get there. So when asked, did you lose 10 pounds if you're trying to? 70% of people did lose 10 pounds. 20% of people did not, and 1 person wasn't even trying. So again, the vast majority of people are going to lose at least 10 pounds by week 6, and so that should be certainly your goal. Again, that depends on your starting weight. So I'm sorry, I tend to talk fast. I'm trying to get through this for sake of your time. That was about 45 minutes of me rambling. Do you have any other questions for me? I did record this, so if anyone wants to watch this, I'll put the recording link on Facebook. Here's for you, Vicky. Oh, where'd it go? There you go, Vic. Oh, so weights. So why don't you do, if you haven't done it before, take a picture of your weight. Stand on the scale, take a picture of that, and go ahead and send it in tonight or tomorrow morning, whatever you want to do. If you want to game the system, take the picture tonight because you'll probably weigh more than you do tomorrow morning. So go ahead and do that. So send them in. I'll take them until tomorrow morning, but try to get those in. It looks like I think we'll have at least 5 teams here. And I'll put that link out for the $10 payment, and that way again all the money will go back to prize money. If everyone's just doing the $10 deal, that's great. And I'll figure out how many how many prizes, but most likely if we just have a smaller group, it'll probably just be 2 prizes. Any other questions? If you haven't done so, please send me your email address. Okay, great. Thank you, Andrea. I thought she was distracted by the balloons. That was Vicky. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, again, try to send me your email. I'll make sure I'll make sure you we put a little email group together. Same thing, I'll try to send out reminders weekly. If you're not hearing from me, please remind me, because last time I did this, I had a little glitch. I thought I was sending messages to people and they weren't getting through. So send your email address here. I'll type in my email real quick. If you haven't gotten it already, but nickmeyer999@hotmail.com. So that's my email address. Kelly. All right, Kelly, I've got yours. What are you asking Billy about Hotmail? Sorry. Yeah, just send it to my Hotmail address. That's easier. So, any other questions? We'll cut you loose otherwise. Yeah, and if anyone else wants to join, please let them know. They can watch the video. I'll send the video or put the link out on Facebook so people can look at it there. And if they want to join, I'll also put the link for the $10 payment, and then all that money will go back to prize money. So, going once, going twice. All right, everyone have a great night. And, oh, wait. Yeah, my email, my Nick Meyer, so my other email address is nickmeyer@ProportionFit.com. So that's my other email address. You can send an email to that one too, and my email is not full anymore, so stuff won't bounce back. So you can send it to my Hotmail or ProportionFit email addresses. Either one is fine. Yep, Anita, I have yours, so that's perfect. All right, good luck all. Thank you, Vic. And send me an email, give me a call, anything if you need anything. Thank you all. Bye-bye.